Easter time. That is the holiest time of the year. But it's also the time when dark forces are at work, when magic is happening. Now, in Drina, there once was a young man who was working for the monastery there. His job was to organize the feasts of Easter time. He was a married man. He was a man of the world, but still people said he was doing such a good job, so they called him actually the abbot of Drina. Some title for a young man, wasn't it? Well, it was Easter time now, and he had been working so hard for days to prepare the great feast. Tomorrow was the big day. So now, in the evening, he came out from the monastery and he was about to go home to his wife for a drink and a chat, when he suddenly got the idea to take a walk in this lovely spring evening. So he walked through Drina and he greeted his neighbors and some friends, and he walked actually out from the village and happened to approach the great mound outside Rehnman, without thinking about what people said, that in this mound the fairies were living. So he climbed that mound. Beautiful view of the village, the fields, the monastery. Oh, I couldn't help to be too tired. He really needed a rest here. So he lay down in the grass and he put his sword to his side. Just a short nap. And he fell to sleep. And he was dreaming strange dreams of arms dressed in silver, touching him. He said to himself, I need to hurry home now. So he stretched for his sword. But there was no sword, but a spittle. What was this? And he happened to touch his hair. It was plaited suddenly. And then he saw that he now was dressed in a woman's clothes. And in a moment, oh horror, he put his hand between his thighs. Goodness! He was no longer a he, but a she. What was going on here? And now suddenly, he saw an old hag standing there with a scary face and hollow eyes and all dressed in silver. And the old hag said, oh my, what is a young girl doing outdoors in this darkness with no protection? Then she was gone. And the abbot was ring now. What could he do? She to her wife. Could she? No. She turned around and walked the opposite direction away from grimmer into the darkness of the night. The coldness, the shadows, the dark forces. But after dark there is light. After night there is morning. She found herself walking along a road. Little birds singing. The sun rising. People coming out from their houses to work on the fields. She walked for hours. She happened to pass the monastery of Crumlin. A young man came out from there. He asked, "May I walk with you, young lady?" Of course, she said yes. He was nice, he was sweet, he was fair. They talked for hours. After a while, the young man said, "My lady, you must be tired. Why don't we sit down here in the high grass, just for a little rest?" And she said, "Yes, yes." That morning, the abbot found out about pleasures that she had never dreamt about in her former life as a man. Being a woman, it was kind of nice. Now the young man, he kept on talking to her. He said, "My lady, I must say I like you a lot. I truly like you a lot. I would like to come to Crumlin and be my wife. Please, please." Well, to the abbot, this was going a bit quick. But on the other hand, she had nowhere to go. And it appeared that this young man, he was actually the chief administrator of the monastery of Crumlin. So he was well off and had a good house. And he was sweet. And he gave her such pleasures. She said yes. So they went back to his house and they were soon married. And so a new kind of life started. Now the abbot had to learn about all the women's work. And she was shocked. It's such hard work to be a woman. Never dreamt about it. Oh, the nights, the pleasures of the nights, and of course then the consequences of these passions, she gave birth to one child, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children after a few years. Hard work there too, but the house was filled with life and laughter. Now one day there came a letter from Rehnman. The people there wanted to ask the chief administrator of Cromden if he would like to come and celebrate Easter with them this very year. And he was excited. So he asked his wife, the abbot, and well, she had to think through this several times because, I mean, it was her home village. Would she dare to go to Rehnman? And nobody would recognize her, would they? So she said yes. And so the day came when they all stepped out on the road. First on the line, her wonderful, lovely husband carrying the youngest child. And after the 6 other children, and in the end of the row, the abbot herself. It was a warm day. It was a long way to walk. She grew tired. In the evening, they were almost there. She could see how the family was crossing the mound, you know. She was a bit behind. She was trying to catch up, but she was tired. She was climbing the mountain. Oh, oh. They've already gone down to the village. Oh, she needed to rest a bit. Sit down just for a minute. Close her eyes just for a minute. And then she was dreaming about arms dressed in silver. Arms coming up from the ground. Oh, she was really late now. She must hurry. Her children. So she was about to sit up when she happened to touch something. A sword. Quite familiar. Her hair had changed. Then she saw that she was dressed in a man's clothes. And in a moment of horror, goodness! Oh Lord Almighty! How can you do this to me? How can you do this? Oh no, oh no. My life is in a real mess now. But my children, they need me. Well, she had to... He had to run after his family, his children, all the way down to Rehnman. The feast was on now. People were dancing and talking, and there came the children running, calling her, "Mother, mother, mother, mother! What's that in your face?" She had it. He had it there now. And then here came his husband. And the husband said, my dearest, most beloved, what's happened with you? You look kind of different. While standing there in front of his husband and his children and the villagers who had gathered around, he had to tell the entire story that you just have heard. And while telling this story, he was weeping bitter tears because he saw these children that was his. He saw his husband that he loved so dearly, who always gave him such joy and pleasures. And he also saw his wife that he had abandoned so many years ago, standing there in the crowd, shocked with hope and sorrow at the same time in her face. Who was he now? Where did he belong now? The following morning, people came out from the houses in Rehnman. The elders, that was. They all walked up to the monastery for a meeting. They had to discuss this strange case. How could they judge in this matter? Because this man was obviously married to a woman and a man. Imagine the penalties for such things in these medieval days. But they all agreed. The poor man had been tricked by the fairies. It couldn't be his fault. He couldn't be blamed. And since he now was a man, he was no longer a woman. And that is why he was no more married to that other man. It was cancelled. And he was reinstalled with his wife. He even got his job back. It was a good thing. But what about the children? Well, the husband could take 4 of the children back to Krongen, while the abbot and his wife could keep 3 of the children. And so that day, he walked home with his wife and 3 children that insisted in calling him mother. And for the rest of his life, he remained close and best friends with his former